They discovered the shocking fate of the man who ignored a chosen one. Few knew what truly happened that night in the shadows of the ancient city. The moon hung low, casting eerie light on the cobblestones, vibrating with the whispered words of prophets and the silent cries of the ignored. The very air crackled with tension. Somewhere in that darkness, a chosen one stood, waiting for the response that never came. Long had the people of the land awaited a sign. The prophet, an unassuming figure, cloaked in rags yet radiating undeniable power, clutched a scroll, its ink fresh and trembling. Like thunder rumbling before a storm, he proclaimed the messages from heaven. The crowd murmur echoed against the stone walls, hope intermingling with skepticism. Would they listen? Or pass him by like one of their discarded shadows? Across the square stood Malachi. He was a merchant, prosperous and proud, more concerned with his gold than with the prophecies unfolding before him. His eyes, sharp as daggers, scanned the horizon for gains. The prophet's words floated to him, surreal and distant, like a dream too far to grasp. Ignorance consumed him. In his heart, arrogance brewed. Suddenly, a flash of light. A miracle? The people gasped, gasps cut short as a palpable silence enveloped them. Then came the sound, an otherworldly cry erupted from the heavens, piercing through the night, echoing down to the depths of their souls. Malachi shivered, a tight grip around his chest as he sensed the weight of tumultuous choices crashing upon him. With every retelling, the account grew more outlandish. The ground quaked beneath their feet, shadows flickered, and an inexplicable chill swept through the crowd. Malachi felt it, an icy finger tracing his spine. What had he staked his life on by ignoring the call of the chosen one? A sudden murmur arose among the witnesses, a mix of terror and disbelief. Did he truly ignore the divine? They whispered, eyes wide with fear. In that fleeting moment, the prophet's gaze locked onto Malachi, a storm of anguish and fate swirling between them. How the man's heart raced. Would he finally heed the call or stay chained to his greed? But it was too late. The winds howled their warning, and Malachi trembled, caught in the grip of something otherworldly. Was he being punished for his arrogance? Or was this merely the beginning of something far more terrible? As the night deepened, all eyes turned to the sky. The chosen one's voice faded, drowned by the darkness, leaving only echoes of unfulfilled destinies. One question hung in the air like a single drop of rain. What fate awaited Malachi for the choice he made? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Despite the phantoms of fear suffusing the air, the moon continued its silent vigil, illuminating the faces frozen with awe and trepidation. Malachi's heart pounded in a furious rhythm, both a testament to life and a herald of his growing dread. Around him, the crowd was in turmoil, and the prophet's voice still echoed in the chambers of their minds. Even as the weight of their choices settled like dust upon their souls, in the heart of the gathering, a woman named Miriam stood transfixed. She had witnessed the miracles of old, the parting of seas and the provision of manna, but here, standing among her fellow citizens, she felt a stirring deep within. Clutching her son close to her chest, she whispered her fears under her breath. What have we forsaken? What will our silence cost us? Each word was a bead of prayer, desperate for understanding. The prophet, noticing the turmoil he had ensnared, turned his gaze from Malachi to the multitude. A profound sorrow swelled in his heart as he sensed their confusion, their battle between doubt and faith. My beloved people, he called, voice resonating with the weight of ages. In every heart, there lies a choice, a beacon guiding us toward what is true and sacred. But woe to the one who turns aside from such illumination. As the crowd absorbed his words, Malachi's gaze fell upon the merchant's wares, glimmering under the moonlight. The allure of wealth tantalized him more than the abstract warnings of a prophet. Yet, beneath the surface of his bravado, a ripple of uncertainty tugged at his thoughts. Had his priorities set the trajectory of his fate? The specter of misgivings haunted him. Just then, the chilling winds began to shift, carrying whispers from the edge of obscurity. Lost souls. He could hear them howling, pleading for redemption. They spoke in tongues unknown, weaving fragments of stories long submerged beneath the earthly remains. Who were they? Their fate remained as ambiguous as the choice before him. Suddenly, something inside Malachi stirred. There was a crack in his armor, a spark nearly extinguished, and he found his feet moving. As he approached the prophet, the air thick with consequence, he pondered whether it was too late for repentance. Would he still find a way back to grace? Or was he destined to wander the paths of lost opportunities and unheeded truths? But where redemption awaited him, another specter loomed. A figure emerged from the shadows, the diplomat Elier, known for his wealth and cunning. The man bore a confidence crafted from years of deceit, and a knowing glance towards Malachi pierced through the merchant's wearied resolve. "What do you think you are doing?" Elier hissed, an undercurrent of panic threading through his voice. "You'll lose everything if you listen to that fool." In that moment, Malachi glimpsed the reflection of his own fear in Elier's eyes. What if rejecting the chosen one meant not just the loss of his wealth, but the forfeiture of his very soul? Was he truly prepared to be manipulated by the empty promises of gold at any cost? The crowd vibrated with energy, oscillating between clarity and chaos, as echoes of the chosen one's return swept over them like a tempest. Bravery became the clarion call, yet Malachi wondered if the choice was his to make or if fate had already sealed his path. Will you heed the whispers of the past, or will echoes of regrets lead you to a future unseen? The question pulsed through him, mirroring the turmoil outside. What was the price one must pay to ignore the call? The glow of the moon deepened, but clarity remained elusive, leaving one unresolved question hanging beneath the night sky. In the face of a divine calling, what truly defines a man's worth? As the moon hung majestically in the sky, illuminating the tumultuous scene below, a distant sensation crept across the assembled multitude like the swelling tide. The air thickened with tension, every heart beat in rhythmic anticipation of a revelation that seemed perpetually out of reach. Malachi relished the sensation of agency, yet it danced on a razor's edge, fear wrestling with the flickering flame of hope. Miriam, unable to silence the clamor of her conscience, stood resolutely with her son held tightly in her arms. The warmth of her child was a tether to sanctity, urging her to listen not just to the prophet's words, but to the still, small voice whispering through her spirit. She glanced toward Malachi, his brow set in a furrow, and wondered what choice the merchant would ultimately make. Perhaps, she thought, the question isn't merely about what we will gain or lose in this world, but what our choices reveal about what we treasure most in the next. Each decision carved a path into eternity, and she could sense the weight of that truth pressing down on her heart. In that moment, the prophet raised his hands, capturing the attention of the seeds of doubt swirling within the assembly. "Listen," he called, his voice cutting through their confusion with clarity. In times of great uncertainty, the soul often seeks comfort in illusions. Yet, I say to you, what lies behind those illusions is the true heart of our collective tomorrow. The unease within Malachi stirred once more. Behind him, Elier shifted restlessly, his shifty eyes darting about, as if the weight of their conversation could lay claim to the right moment. "Do you not see?" Elier whispered urgently. "This is madness. Disgrace yourself not for the broken sails of a visionary whose purpose is shrouded at best and diluted at worst." But as Elier continued to press the merchant with persuasive words of caution, Malachi felt a shroud unburdening. Each flicker of the prophet's conviction pierced the echo chambers of his heart, inviting light into darkened corridors previously avoided. The merchant's grip on his ambitions began to unravel not through fear, but through a burgeoning desire for authenticity. The crowd, still in thrall, felt the prophetic words wrap around them, enveloping their fears and doubts in the promise of a faith renewed. "What use is wealth if it weaves a tapestry of regret?" echoed the prophet. "Choose ye this day whom you will serve. For in that choice lies the foundation of your legacy, how you will be remembered." In that instant, a realization flashed across Malachi's mind. The essence of his worth was not bound solely in gold and riches. Deep within him, the familiar resonance of longing, desire for belonging and truth began its gentle hum. Yet, the question hung heavy on his heart, like a storm cloud pregnant with rain. What compels one to heed the call of the divine when the world beckons with open arms filled with false promises? Suddenly, Miriam stepped forward, unsheathed from the shadows of uncertainty. "Prophet," she called, her voice steady as she beheld the depths of faith blooming around her. "What is the cost of following the path of righteousness when the weight of our sins clings like shadows? Can we walk in light when the remnants of darkness seem ever present?" The prophet, touched by her sincerity, replied with slow deliberation, "The path of righteousness costs dear, my sister. It requires a surrender of all that binds, as well as the willing embrace of vulnerability. Yet, though shadows may linger, the sun of righteousness shall arise and bring healing wings. But remember, the choice remains with you. Will you steadfastly choose to follow, or will you retreat to familiar chains?" In that moment, the echoes of the past merged with the whispers of the future. Malachi stood straddling the edges of two destinies, while the murmuration of voices unleashed questions that had no easy answers dancing in the recesses of his mind. As the moon cast its gentle light upon him, illuminating the faces of those around him, one last thought spiraled within him, a question suspended in the vast expanse of uncertainty. If one's worth is determined by the choices made in the face of enlightenment, then what shadows remained in the corners of the soul that called out for acknowledgement? The air thickened under the weight of Miriam's inquiry, and a hush fell over the crowd like a veil. Each heart, tethered to its own doubts and aspirations, seemed to beat as one. Malachi wrestled with the gravity of her question, as if the very foundations of his existence trembled under its scrutiny. All eyes moved toward the prophet, who stood as a beacon amidst the mounting uncertainty. The prophet, his gaze piercing through misty layers of doubt, acknowledged the profound nature of Miriam's words. "Indeed, dear sister, darkness has its weight. Yet consider this. It is the darkness that presses down upon you, but it is also the absence of light that brings its presence." Malachi swallowed hard, grappling with the image of the shadows that echoed the sins of his past. He could almost feel them, lingering just beyond the edge of his consciousness, encroaching upon the nascent hope that flickered within him. Was it arrogance or humility that held sway over him now? The flicker of righteousness beckoned, yet the call of his former life tugged at his heart with tenacious familiarity. "Prophet," Eliur interjected, a hint of defiance veiled beneath his words, "consider that the burdens we carry weigh heavily. To confront them invites destruction upon ourselves. Can we afford to invite chaos into our lives?" His words dripped with urgency, yet beneath the surface, they revealed his own apprehension about the path being illuminated before them. The prophet turned his attention toward Eliur, imparting a calmness that seemed to radiate from him. "In each choice lies the duality of existence. You fear chaos, yet chaos is an avenue for transformation. The true question, dear friend, is not whether we may experience turmoil, but rather, are we willing to embrace the change it brings? The wound cannot heal if left untouched." Malachi's heart raced, feeling the tumult within him churning like a restless sea. He caught the eye of Miriam, her strength a living testament to the powerful simplicity of faith. He saw her unwavering gaze, challenging him to seize a destiny ripe with purpose. Could he truly step out from the shadows of his past into the light of a promised tomorrow? The stillness around him began to shift as murmurs pulsed through the assembly. Each individual grappled with their baggage, their choices clamoring for attention. Malachi weighed the allure of a life shackled to material gain against the echoing whisper of potential freedom towards which the prophet gestured. "Miriam, what we seek is rarely presented clearly," Malachi admitted, loath to admit how deep the roots of his hesitations were bound. "How do we know which path leads to truth? What assurance do we receive for choosing one burden over another?" The prophet's voice rang clear amid the clamor. "Ah, my friend, that is found within each heart. Truth is both a guiding star and a tempestuous storm. It will reveal its face only to those who dare to pursue it. It will be your faith that illumines the path when all else casts you into darkness. The choice lies within. As he spoke, something shifted in Malachi. an awakening that prompted the anger and fear once bottled deep within to rise and writhe, craving resolution. He felt the good and the bad converge, press against him like waves crashing against the shoreline. A shadow whispered, almost insidiously, that true security resided in the familiar, even the familiar chains. Miriam sensed the tension boiling in the air. Remember, she offered softly, the darkness may linger, yet the dawn must always break anew. In pursuit of truth, we may find healing even in the remnants of our past mistakes. In our vulnerability, perhaps we can find strength. Malachi closed his eyes, feeling the collective sorrow of the crowd meld with his own anguish, all the grief transformed into a plea for change. And yet still, a deep-seated question remained lodged in his spirit like a stubborn stone refusing to budge. If the path of the chosen requires our surrender, what will we become if we choose to follow? And what of our incomplete selves will we leave behind? The sun dipped near the horizon, casting long shadows that danced against the stones of the square. The air was charged with a palpable tension, an unspoken anticipation that hung like a heavy curtain. Malachi pondered the prophet's words, his heart racing as the murmurs around him forged a tapestry of uncertainty and yearning. The crowd was at a crossroads, each face a canvas depicting fear, hope, doubt, and longing. Prophet, a voice called from the back, a young woman with bright eyes and an unyielding spirit. What of those who have walked away from truth? Do they not cast shadows darker than the night? What hope remains for them? Her question pierced the quietude, echoing the anxiety that had settled deep within many present. The prophet regarded her with tenderness, as if he was seeing not just her, but all who stood in that moment, suspended between despair and opportunity. "Ah, dear one," he replied with a voice soft yet firm, "even the wayward can find their way home. It is in the act of seeking, of returning to the light, that they might awaken the dormant glimmers of their souls. Each person carries within them the spark of the divine, no matter how obscured by anguish or distraction. The journey back may be arduous, but every step taken towards truth is a step towards salvation." Malachi felt the weight of her question wrap around his heart like a vine, constricting yet stimulating. Were the shadows of his past so impenetrable that his spirit could not emerge unscathed? Time and again he had chosen paths that led him further away from the essence of light, seeking comfort in familiarity over the daunting promise of renewal. What kind of man would he become if he chose to walk toward the dawn instead? And what of the burdens we carry? Eliur pressed further, his brow furrowing as if the weight of those questions bore down upon him. Are we not shaped by our past? Can we simply shed it like an old cloak when it has become our very skin? Ah, but the cloak does not define you, dear Eliur, the prophet responded, his voice steady. It is merely a garment, a part of the journey. Your essence remains, untouched by the fabric of yesterday. But tell me, what is it that you truly desire? To dwell in the shadows of your history, or to step into the radiant light that awaits? Malachi watched Eliur's expression shift, the battle between his fears and yearnings playing out across his features. It struck Malachi that perhaps therein lay the crux of the matter. The declaration of one's intentions served as the genesis of transformation. The prophet continued, his presence palpable as he wove through the tapestry of hearts surrounding him. In the same way that the earth must be tilled before the seed can take root, you must confront your shadows. Acknowledge them, witness their tenacity, but do not let them anchor you in despair. For from this very soil of struggle, hope can spring forth. It is the act of confrontation that can harvest change. A flicker of recognition sparked within Malachi. Could this be the answer he sought? Could acknowledging his failures rather than merely hiding or bearing them offer up a doorway to a new self? It was then he wondered whether he had been unwilling not just to embrace the suffering, but the lessons it offered, the possibility of forgiveness, both for himself and for those who had wronged him. Miriam stepped forward, her voice unyielding. But how do we confront that which seeks to destroy us? How do we interrogate demons that feel insurmountable? By wielding the weapon of faith, the prophet replied. It is the unwavering belief that transformation is possible and that hope will conquer despair. Your faith may be small, like a mustard seed, yet even the mightiest of trees can spring forth from such a humble beginning. Each moment you decide to embrace truth is a victory. As he spoke, a hush enveloped the crowd, reverberating through the echoes of their past failures and dreams. Malachi's heart swelled at the thought of possibility, yet the mountains of fear remained, stubborn cliffs that towered over his resolve. In that intricate moment, the question lingered ominously. Would he dare to acknowledge the fractures within himself, or would he remain chained to the boy he once was, too afraid to step into a future he could not foresee? As the last rays of sunlight surrendered to the encroaching twilight, a heavy stillness descended upon the gathering. The whispers of uncertainty intertwined with the stories of their past, forming a collective memory that pulsed with unspoken needs and desires. Each person seemed drawn deeper into the mysteries of their own souls as they pondered the prophet's words. That a chill swept through the square, as if the very air held its breath, awaiting the next brushstroke upon the canvas of their shared humanity. Malachi stood at the center of this gathering, a mere figure cast against something infinitely greater, yet burdened by a quest for understanding. A soft wind stirred the leaves around him, rustling like the delicate whispers of a distant kin. Just as the shadows of doubt grew long, a figure emerged on the outskirts of the crowd, eyes gleaming with urgency and fear. It was Naomi, a woman whose laughter had once filled the squares with joy, now marred by sorrow. She rushed forward, her voice cracking like a broken branch. "Prophet, I have come to seek your wisdom. My brother, Asa, has strayed so far from the path that I fear he has lost himself entirely. What hope can there be for those who have turned from the chosen light?" The attention of the assembly turned towards her, the deepening glow of evening amplifying the gravity of her plea. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the gathering, as each person could sense the weight of her fears mirrored in their own experiences. The prophet turned his gaze towards Naomi, acknowledging the pain resonating in her heart. "Beloved sister," he said, his tone both gentle and strong, "understand that the journey of a soul does not end at the doors of despair. Darkness may seem impenetrable, but even the most distant stars can still be seen on the clearest nights. Your brother carries within him the same divine spark, though it may be obscured. He can return through the acts of love you exhibit. But what if he refuses to see the light we offer? What if he is prepared to walk forever in shadow?" Naomi implored. "Then let your love be the beacon that calls him back," the prophet urged. "Your faith, your unwavering belief in his potential, may serve as the catalyst for his awakening. Remember that the path of healing begins with belief, the notion that transformation is indeed possible, not just for others, but for oneself." As these words settled upon the assembly, Malachi felt a pang of recognition. His mind wandered to his own brother, who had chosen a different road, one that had led him away from the warmth of their shared ideals. Was he himself prepared to embrace this notion of love as a guiding light? Or would he continue to let his fears bind him? Elier spoke up again, his voice shaking with the weight of the moment. "But how can we trust in something so frail? How can mere faith withstand the storms of selfishness and despair that pummel our lives? Can we truly believe that love can conquer such darkness?" The prophet raised a hand, stilling the murmurs that threatened to surge like a wave. "Each soul has the power to navigate the storms," he declared. "Even the smallest flicker of hope can ignite the brightest inferno. But understand this, belief is not a passive state. It requires action, persistence, and a vulnerability that reveals our deepest selves. You must confront the chains that bind you and step forth into the unknown with courage." That Malachi's heart raced at the sheer intensity of the moment. The love that would guide Asa back, that could pull Naomi's brother from the depths, had to originate from a place of genuine sincerity and self-reflection. He wondered if he had buried his own love just as deeply was he denying the very essence of connection that could restore him. "To Miriam," he called gently, "what if this journey demands the greatest part of ourselves, our brokenness, our honesty? What then? Are we prepared to expose our wounds in the face of pain?" The crowd held its breath as Miriam contemplated his question. Perhaps our vulnerabilities are not just scars, but bridges connecting us to one another, she proposed thoughtfully. By sharing our fragments, we may not only help illuminate the path for others, but also find a way to heal ourselves. The atmosphere grew thick with possibilities, each revelation a fragile thread weaving into the collective fabric of hope. Yet, a lingering question echoed in Malachi's heart. Would he summon the resolve to face his own shadows, or would he remain shackled in silence, forever wandering through the uncertain twilight? As the skies darkened and stars began to sprinkle the heavens, a palpable tension hung over the assembly. Under a tapestry woven with the mysteries of night, the air felt charged, as if to signal that answers were not yet at hand. Only more questions born from the seeking hearts. Malachi, still wrestling with his thoughts, felt a tug at his sleeve. He turned to see a youthful girl named Shira, her eyes bright with the astonishment of witnessing this sacred moment. "Prophet," she called out, her voice barely a whisper, "can love truly be the power that guides someone back from despair? What if Asa is lost beyond reach?" The prophet smiled gently, for he saw in Shira's earnestness a reflection of countless souls. "Light cannot be snuffed out," he replied softly, "though it may flicker in the wind, it has the strength to endure. Love possesses the transformative grace that weaves hope into hopelessness. But what of those who reject this light?" Shira pressed on, her youthful spirit undeterred by the weight of the inquiry. "What becomes of them? Can those who turn away experience redemption?" A hush fell over the assembly as they pondered her question. The prophet's gaze drifted across the faces of the gathering, and in that moment, he perceived in each heart something familiar: the fear of rejection, the darkness that clung stubbornly to corners of their spirits. Even the deepest shadow cannot exist without light. Remember, dear ones, that each choice leads you to a crossroad. There lies the challenge, or the freedom, to find your path away from despair. Naomi stood taller, emboldened by the exchange, and realizing that her fear for Asa mirrored a universal truth that haunted them all. "Would you then say, prophet, that our choices define our fate? That every soul has the agency to step forth into the light, even as they grapple with their own darkness?" The prophet nodded thoughtfully. "It is the intent of our hearts, the choices we make, that chart our course. But it is also through community, through open hearts sharing their truths, that we nurture one another's return to light." In that moment, Malachi felt the stirrings of resolve blooming in his chest. Could it be that the fears he held so tightly were nothing more than shackles longing to be cast away? The faces around him, illuminated by flickering lanterns, resembled the very fabric of need he had often shielded himself from. Was it possible that in one another's vulnerabilities lay the strength he sought? Just then, an elder from the crowd, Leora, stepped forward, her voice steady and resonant. "If love is the beacon, is it not also the mirror that reflects our truest selves? Must we not reconcile with our fears before we can truly pour love into another?" Her words ignited a fire within them all, drawing them into a circle of shared understanding. Each soul began to reflect on their lives, revealing the fabric of brokenness and hope that intertwined their stories. Malachi's chest tightened as he thought of his estranged brother, once a part of his journey, now a shadow from which he had turned away. As the wind picked up, swaying the trees overhead, it carried the whispers of shared confessions and promises, sowing seeds of love among them all. The communal atmosphere began to shift, transforming despair into a thread of hope. What if, Malachi ventured into the stirring stillness, the real power of love lies not simply in its ability to ignite change in others, but in how we allow it to transform our own hearts? The prophet turned to him, meeting his gaze with an understanding that pierced the haze of doubt. Indeed, each heart must be willing to shatter and be rebuilt anew, just as the dawn offers promise after the darkest nights. As the stars above shone brightly, each flickering light reflecting in the corners of their eyes, Malachi felt a push toward action. Yet, even within this warmth of revelation and newfound strength, an uncomfortable thought lingered. Was he ready to expose his vulnerabilities and seek out his brother, risking the very intimacy he sought to preserve? Would he offer love fully when it felt so intertwined with persistent fear? As the night deepened and the assembly continued to share their hopes, Malachi pondered the powerful truth hidden within their exchange. In the very act of seeking love, could he also find the courage to embrace his deepest dread? The night deepened, shadows merging with the dance of the flickering lights, and Malachi found himself tracing the patterns of the stars above. The celestial bodies blinked like distant promises, and for a moment, His heart soared with the collective spirit of the assembly. Yet, amidst the warmth surrounding him, a chill ran through his marrow when he thought of Asa, the brother he once knew, who was now lost to despair. As Leora led the gathering in prayer, the sound of her voice imbued the air with a sweet and somber melody. Let us seek vision, O Divine One, for in understanding lies our deliverance. May we dismantle our fears and build bridges of love that reach even to those who seem beyond hope. As the congregation echoed her prayer, Malachi's mind drifted back to the fateful day when Asa chose a different path. The image of their previous life, laughter dancing between them, dreams shared under the trees, the light of their mutual ambition felt like eons past. Yet, Malachi was overwhelmed by the ache of loss. Dreams had ripened into bitterness, and Asa had slipped away, swallowed by the shadows that, like brambles, clawed at his soul. The prophet, sensing Malachi's turmoil, stepped closer. What burdens your spirit, my friend? His voice was a ripple of calm amidst the storm within. Malachi felt an urge to speak, to unravel his heart before this gathering, but he hesitated. Prophet, I fear the chasm that separates me from my brother. How can I cross it without the very love that I know I should extend? The prophet sighed, a soft weight to his breath. Love is a mystery, not meant to be confined by circumstance. It may seem fragile, yet it possesses a fortitude we often underestimate. Speak your truth, for in vulnerability lies the first step of reaching Asa. With trembling hands, Malachi turned to his fellow gatherers. We all stand here yearning for connection, for healing, as we wrestle with our hidden shadows. My brother Asa, he has turned from the light, and in his choice, I believe he stands on the brink of despair. Yet, I have often turned from my own light so that I could distance myself from the pain of confronting his darkness. That I in that moment, Shira's eyes widened in understanding. So, you too fear what lies within. Her gaze carried the weight of pity and compassion. But if you love him still, how can you stand by when reaching out might pull him from the depths? The elder Leora nodded gravely. Each of us bears silent struggles, young Shira. But Malachi's honesty reveals a crucial truth. To mend what is broken, we must first face our own fractures. Finding Asa may mean discovering the parts of ourselves we shield from view. Yet, amid their growing resolve, Malachi felt a rift in his heart. And what if my efforts end in rejection? What if Asa rebuffs my love, forever lost in shadows I cannot penetrate? His voice trembled, the words heavy on the air. The prophet turned his gaze toward the heavens, and a streak of light shot through the sky, as though the stars themselves sought to offer guidance. Every soul has an arc, dear ones. Asa's journey is as sacred as yours. He may turn away, yes, or he may yet respond to your light. Remember, love cannot be dictated by conditions. It must be offered freely, without the promise of return. In the hush that followed, Malachi wrestled with the gravity of their words. The gathering held its breath, and he wondered if he could muster the courage required to surrender his heart, risking the possibility of rejection. Could it be, he mused, that even in the act of reaching out, I discovered the connection to my own brokenness? That the very act of seeking Asa could illuminate the lost parts of myself? In that uncertain space between hope and despair, the assembly echoed his thoughts. What becomes of love when it meets vulnerability? What paths might unfold when we are brave enough to tread upon these sacred, intertwining journeys? And as those questions filled the air, they lingered weightily above them, inviting further contemplation as night draped its veil gently over their yearning hearts. As the somber night embraced the assembly, a hush fell over the gathering as Leora raised her voice once more. Each word flowed like a river of faith, carrying the weight of hope mingled with uncertainty. Let us not shy away from the storm. Instead, may we find our passage through those turbulent waters to reach the shores of our hearts where healing can begin. Malachi felt his heart echo the rhythm of her call, yet shadows loomed large within him. Asa's image danced like a mirage, unreachable, taunting him with memories that slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. What if he has wandered too far? He whispered, half in prayer, half in despair. In that moment, the prophet raised a hand, stilling Malachi's racing thoughts. His eyes held an ancient wisdom, piercing the veil of doubt. Remember, young one, Every footstep casts a shadow, but the light that births it can also dispel it. We often overlook the musty corners of our own hearts that house both shadows and light. The night deepened, and with it came a mother's lament, a soft sob emanating from a corner of the gathering. Miriam stepped into the flickering lights, the pain etched across her face. "Fear consumes me as well," she said, her voice trembling yet resonant. "Some of us are bound by the yearning for those who have chosen paths we cannot follow. My son, too, has wandered far, away from the warmth of our love." The gathering's collective heart pulsed in sympathy, each person confronted by their unique sorrows. Malachi felt the tendrils of connection weaving in the still air, threading through the painful narratives of love and loss, longing and absence. "Do we not all share this fear?" Shira inquired, her voice a beacon in the darkness. "What happens to the light we carry when those we cherish refuse to see it? How do we face the void when it reflects the very parts of ourselves we seek to hide?" Leora nodded, a deep knowing shining in her eyes. "Your love will never be in vain, even if it requires you to confront the very dark spaces where your brother resides. Love, dear ones, is a bridge over which we hope others may traverse. But it begins with the courage to step onto the bridge ourselves, even when it feels like a leap into the unknown." Malachi's heart raced. "But what if the bridge crumbles beneath my feet? What if the love I offer is consumed by the shadows?" "It is not yours to control," the prophet replied pensively. "You only carry the light. The acceptance of that light lays not on your shoulders. It belongs to each soul, whether they step onto the path or remain in darkness. Your vulnerability, your willingness to reach out, that is sacred work. Perhaps there is no greater purpose than to display your love, despite the pain of uncertainty." These profound thoughts cascaded among them. The winds moved beyond the assembly, rustling the leaves, whispering mysteries from the depths of the night. Malachi sensed the power of their shared resolve that healing might not come from solving the darkness around them, but from bravely illuminating their own. Yet, beneath the yearning for connection lay an unsettling question, a paradox that stung his heart. When does love become a choice weighed against the risk of heartache? What if, in the act of reaching out to others, he found only the mirror reflecting his own pain? And so, as the stars bore witness to their struggles, the assembly remained suspended in that moment, grappling with the perplexing dance between light and dark. What new revelations awaited them on the path, yet untraveled? Would they find the courage to build the bridges they so desperately desired, or would the shadows persist, claiming yet another broken heart? As the night deepened, the stars shimmered high above the gathered souls like glinting jewels woven through a tapestry of darkness. Each citizen felt the restless air around them, heavy with expectation, a chorus of lives intertwined at a sacred crossroads, suspended between silence and revelation. The flickering lanterns cast a warm glow, illuminating the faces that reflected yearning, apprehension, and the fragile thread of hope. Malachi stood at the center of that living tableau, the worries of his heart echoing loudly in the stillness. The words exchanged had stirred something deep within him, a raw awareness of the burdens he carried not only for himself, but for his brother, Asa, whose light had dimmed too far into shadows. Yet, amid that tempest of emotion, a flicker of courage began to spark within him, ignited by the realization that love was not merely a luxury, but a profound necessity. As the gathering pondered their next steps, the prophet, his presence a comforting embodiment of divine purpose, raised his hands to still the murmurs. "Beloved friends," he began, and his voice reached into the depths of their hearts, "we stand not just as individuals haunted by our losses, but as a community capable of weaving connections stronger than the shades of despair. Love is indeed the map that guides us home, yet it demands action and vulnerability from every soul involved." He motioned for silence, inviting them to reflect on their plight. What if redemption lies not in waiting for those lost to wander back to the light, but in stepping forward to bridge the divide? We cannot tether our own fates to another's choice, yet we can illuminate the path, giving them a light by which to see, should they choose to turn back. Malachi's heart thumped heavily as he listened. He glanced around at the faces painted with a myriad of emotions: fear, longing, determination. The truth hung palpably in the air. Each one of them bore a piece of the darkness, yet they all carried an equal measure of light. He had spent too long tethered to his own reservations, afraid of extending himself, afraid of the depths of love laid bare before him. Maybe it was time to begin unraveling the chains that bind. Miriam stepped forward, her gaze steady and vibrant. Prophet, how do we break these chains? If love and vulnerability become the path, then what does that journey look like for each of us? How do we confront the shadows that cling so tightly to our souls? The prophet smiled warmly. The journey begins within. Embrace the courage to confront your fears while permitting yourselves to feel both the weight of pain and the joy of connection. For to dwell only upon our fears encourages the shadows to loom larger. But to embrace our truth, the good, and the hurt, it creates space for healing to blossom. When you love, you ignite an echo of divinity that reverberates, creating ripples of grace. His words. Malachi shifted uneasily, feeling the foundation of his own doubts wobble. But what if the love I offer is met only with silence? He ventured, the tremor in his voice betraying his inner turmoil. What if my efforts to connect lay bare the fragments of my own pain, only to discover that it is all in vain? Ah, dear friend, the prophet replied, his voice steeped in compassion. The act of reaching out creates possibilities hitherto unseen. Your vulnerability lays a tender groundwork for profound connection. Remember this. Every heart grows weary when held in isolation. When you choose to share your burdens, to invite the light in, you may find healing not just in others, but within yourself. Malachi closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of those words wrap around him like an embrace. The flickering lanterns illuminated a path, beckoning him toward the journey he had long feared to undertake. If the act of loving demanded bravery, then perhaps the greatest pose of strength lay in his willingness to confront his own darkness in the process of reaching out to Asa. The cries of the assembly hushed, as Shira, the youth who had first posed her doubts, stepped into the light. I understand now. Each of us carries light, no matter how dim it may flicker against our struggles. And perhaps, by shimmering this light together, we can lead our loved ones back even if they have lost their way. The air grew thick with anticipation, their hearts stirred by realization. The shadows remained but seemed to soften, a collective decision forming in their spirits that they would share the burden of truth, lovingly illuminating paths left untouched for too long. That I will reach out to Asa, Malachi declared, his voice stronger now, resonating with the resolve forged from the gathering strength. I can no longer allow the chasm of despair to widen between us. Am willing to embrace my vulnerabilities and risk my heart. For the sake of love and connection. That a wave of encouragement surged through the assembly, and in that moment, time suspended as the realization dawned. They too were called to venture forth, to confront the shadows in their own lives, reach toward their loved ones, and illuminate dark corners that beckoned for connection. For the first time, Malachi felt the shackles of his past beginning to loosen, giving way to an emerging understanding that love has the power to transform, even to resurrect hope from brokenness. He turned to Miriam, whose eyes mirrored the curious light of possibilities. Can we walk this journey together? Supporting each step towards truth, her smile shone brightly, unmistakably filled with faith. Yes, together we can forge bonds of love and grace. And perhaps we can become that beacon of light, urging others to find their way home to As they stood, hand in hand. An unspoken promise passed among the gathering, a shared commitment to heal, to love, and to embrace the shadows for the sake of transcendent light. And in that collective acknowledgement, they became radiant beacons against the night, illuminating pathways that had long been shrouded in obscurity. With the moon rising high above, casting silvery rays on the gathered souls, the prophet stepped back, watching the once distant silhouettes converge, hearts igniting with newfound purpose. The world around them thrummed with life longing, pain, hope, and the kind of love capable of forging paths anew. And as dawn began to whisper its approach on the horizon, illuminating the boundless potential of their testimony, they understood that true transformation does not arise in isolation, but flourishes best in a community united by love. In that serene moment, a revelation hung in the air for them all. It is not merely the destination that matters, but the courage to traverse the journey together with open hearts, bearing light where darkness once reigned. The echoes of the chosen one reverberated through their souls, igniting a flame within. Walk in the light, love boldly, and embrace both the struggles and the joys, for in your unity lies the power to reshape destinies. And thus, under the light of a new dawn, they stepped forward not just as individuals, but as a community woven together through the fabric of hope that in reaching for each other, they would inevitably discover their truest selves. Here, on the precipice of healing, they found the power to transform shadows into a guiding light, one heart at a time.
Con cautela, antes de entrar. Sabía que estaba a punto de enfrentar el núcleo de la corrupción, donde la verdad interrumpiría la mentira de una vez por todas. La reunión en la sala se desarrollaba como un laberinto de engaños, y me sentí lista para abrir la puerta hacia un nuevo amanecer. Una vez dentro, el grupo de directivos me miró con sorpresa evidente. Mi presencia no había sido anunciada, y en el aire flotaba una mezcla de genuina preocupación y desdén. ¿Qué está pasando aquí?, exclamé, dejando que mi voz resonara con autoridad. La mirada de mi exjefe, el gerente, le dio a la situación un giro aterrador. La atmósfera densamente cargada decía más que 1000 palabras. No debiste venir, esto es un lugar peligroso para que estés, dijo, intentando disminuir mi determinación con un tono de advertencia. No tengo miedo, salió de mis labios con confianza. Solo quiero saber la verdad. ¿Qué están tratando de ocultar? Sus rostros se endurecieron, y pude escuchar el crujido de los nervios en su interior. Pero antes de que pudiera obtener respuestas, el sonido del teléfono interrumpió el silencio. Un eco familiar golpeó en la sala, y cuando miré mi dispositivo, el horror me atravesó. Un mensaje llegó desde una figura enigmática y conocida. X, ¿te encuentras bien? Sabes que hay más de lo que crees a tu alrededor. No confíes en ellos. La verdad será tu salvación. Al alzar la vista, la confusión en la sala se transformó en una histeria murmurante. Las miradas se cruzaron y como un relámpago, entendí que estaba inmersa en un juego más grande que yo sola. La batalla que estaba a punto de librarse no era solo mía, sino de todos aquellos que habían sufrido en silencio. Escuchen, grité, uniendo fuerzas con la energía de mis amigos. Estamos atrapados en un juego de manipulaciones y mentiras. Aquí hay fuerzas que deben ser reveladas, y estoy dispuesta a exponer todo. Quiero que se sepa la verdad. Fue un momento de epifanía que cortó la atmósfera gris como un rayo de sol. La decisión estaba clara, abrazaría la luz aunque eso significará adentrarme en la oscuridad. El eco de mi determinación se sintió como un cataclismo en el aire. Y en ese momento de revelación, donde cada mirada y cada conexión se mezclaron en un solo impulso, supe que al fin, estaba en el camino correcto. La verdad podía ser aterradora, pero se necesitaba una luz que perturbase la oscuridad. Así, en el punto culminante de esta travesía, con el corazón en la mano y la voz resonando como un poderoso tambor de guerra, susurré, la verdad siempre trae su propio precio, pero estoy dispuesta a pagarlo. Porque ahora sé que la única forma de avanzar es encarar las sombras, y en ellas, encontrar mi verdadero poder. Recordaré este momento, el instante en que decidí no ser solo un espectador en mi historia, sino el protagonista que enfrentaría sus miedos, sus sombras y se levantaría, no solo para iluminar su vida, sino también para liberar a otros de sus cadenas.